Welcome to the debate. If you drop an unarmed civilian into a dense jungle,
Yeah, surrounded by apex predators.
right, surrounded by apex predators, and they somehow walk out without a single scratch, you have to ask a fundamental question.
For sure.
Are they a strategic genius, playing four-dimensional chess, or just a really lucky street fighter who survived on pure panicked instinct?
It's a great question, and today we're asking that exact question about one of the most ruthless survival stories ever put to paper, which is Julia Donaldson's The Gruffalo.
Exactly. Now, if you're listening right now, you might be thinking it's completely absurd to apply high-level psychological warfare tactics to a children's book.
I mean, I would forgive them for thinking that.
Right. But if you strip away the rhyming couplets, the actual mechanics of survival happening in this text are staggering. We are diving into the deep, dark wood to explore exactly how this little mouse uses pure wisdom and intellect to defeat a series of incredibly strong enemies.
It is definitely a story of high-stakes survival, yeah, even if it is disguised as a bedtime story.
For sure. So, specifically, we are debating the fundamental nature of the mouse's mind. I'll be arguing that this mouse operates as a master strategist, utilizing calculated cognitive manipulation and precise architectural staging to systematically neutralize its threats.
And I'll be arguing that the mouse is not some Machiavellian grand architect. Instead, I see a brilliant opportunist. I think the mouse survives by being an improvisational genius, rapidly adapting to a reality that completely shatters its own initial assumptions.
Well, let me lay out the foundation for my perspective here, because I think the text reveals a clear exercise in premeditated psychological warfare.
Okay, let's hear it.
Just look at the power dynamics, right? The mouse is physically inferior to the fox, the owl, and the snake. It can't fight them, so it doesn't just run away. It actively anticipates the specific desires and fears of each individual predator. By inventing highly tailored culinary-themed threats like roasted fox, owl ice cream, and scrambled snake, the mouse systematically dismantles its enemy's predatory drive through psychological terror.
Wow.
Psychological terror?
Okay.
It is. And the ultimate proof of this overarching strategy occurs when the real Gruffalo actually appears. The mouse doesn't break character. It seamlessly integrates this massive, unexpected variable into its pre-existing strategy.
Right.
It weaponizes the predator's preconditioned fears against the Gruffalo itself to establish absolute dominance in the wood.
Well, I hear you on the strategy angle, I really do, but I just can't ignore what the text explicitly tells us about the mouse's internal state.
What do you mean?
Well, after every single early encounter, what does the mouse do? It walks away and mutters to itself, silly old fox, doesn't he know there's no such thing as a Gruffalo?
Sure, the muttering.
Yeah, and it says the exact same thing about the owl and the snake. The mouse genuinely believes it is spinning a total fiction. I mean, there can't be a grand overarching design to defeat a real Gruffalo because the mouse is absolutely certain the Gruffalo doesn't exist.
That's one way to read it.
The true genius here is radical adaptability. When faced with the ultimate ontological shock, with the monster stepping out of its imagination and into reality, the mouse relies on immediate, high-stakes improvisation. It's a survival reflex. It's opportunistic jazz, not a classical symphony drafted in advance.
I love the jazz comparison, but let's look closer at the actual notes being played. I want to examine the construction of the myth.
Okay, let's do it.
If the mouse is just improvising out of panic, like you're saying, the descriptions of the Gruffalo would be random. But the precision of the linguistic constructs the mouse uses is staggering.
Staggering is a strong word.
It is staggering. It builds the Gruffalo's anatomy systematically, piece by piece, perfectly tailored to the specific sensory anxieties of each predator it faces.
Tailored how, exactly? Because to me, a monster is just a monster. Big teeth, big claws, scary stuff.
Well, let's break it down. Take the fox, right? The fox is a terrestrial hunter, a ground-level predator that relies on biting and grappling.
Okay, yeah.
So what threat does the mouse invent for the fox? Terrible tusks, terrible claws, and terrible teeth in terrible jaws. Physical, immediate, close-quarters weaponry.
Sure, that makes sense.
But then we get to the owl. The owl is an aerial observer. Its threat matrix is entirely different. It's not afraid of claws on the ground. It's afraid of things that ruin its visual advantage or, suggest disease.
Ah, so you're pointing to the knobbly knees and the poisonous wart.
Exactly. Knobbly knees, turned-out toes, and a poisonous wart on the end of his nose. For a bird of prey that relies on crystal-clear vision and avoids tainted meat, a poisonous wart is terrifying.
Huh, okay.
And then the snake, a creature highly sensitive to visual contrast and venom. What does the mouse paint for the snake? Orange eyes, a black tongue, and purple prickles all over his back.
High contrast colors.
Yes, in nature, high contrast colors like purple and orange signal extreme toxicity. And this isn't just throwing out scary words, it is a highly structured methodology designed to create cognitive overload in its enemies. It's basically a targeted social engineering attack, but, for woodland predators.
Okay, I have to admit that is a fascinating breakdown of the biology, and the specific traits map incredibly well to the predators.
Right?
But have you considered that this morphological buildup is simply the compounding nature of a lie being spun on the fly?
How so?
Think about how lies work in real life. When you tell a fib and someone asks for a detail, you make one up. Then the next person asks, and you have to maintain the previous details while adding new ones to escalate the stakes and keep the story straight.
Oh, so it's the yes-anding of its own fiction?
Precisely. The mouse adds details purely to suit the immediate moment. It tells the fox about the teeth and claws because it desperately needs to get out of an invitation to an underground house.
True.
It adds the knobbly knees for the owl because the stakes are rising and it needs a fresh detail to maintain the bluff. This is additive invention. It is a survival reflex in the purest sense.
But
the mouse isn't consulting a calculated psychological profile drafted in advance. It's literally just stalling for time so it doesn't get eaten.
I see the logic there, I really do, but I can't get past how geographically precise the mouse is during these encounters.
Geographically precise?
Yeah, it's like a defense attorney laying a highly specific trap during cross-examination. Notice how the mouse anchors the lie in specific physical realities for each predator. It tells the fox the meeting is here, by these rocks.
Oh, I see where you're going.
Right? It tells the owl it's here, by this stream. It tells the snake it's here, by this lake.
Wait, so you're saying by telling the snake here by this lake, it's intentionally boxing the snake out of its own territory?
Yes, the mouse isn't just throwing out scary physical attributes into the ether. It is anchoring the fiction to the exact physical reality they are standing in at that moment.
That's clever.
If you're a panicked improviser, your instinct is to distance yourself from the threat. You would say, oh, I'm meeting the monster far, far away from here. But a master strategist says, I'm meeting him right exactly where you are standing.
Interesting.
That spatial anchoring forces the predator to abandon their immediate territory. It is a deliberate spatial strategy, not just a frantic bluff.
Okay, the spatial anchoring is undeniably clever. It evicts the predators from their own living rooms. But if we're going to talk about the mouse as this unfazed, omniscient mastermind, we have to confront the elephant, or rather, the Gruffalo in the room.
Ah, the moment on the path.
Right. We have to look at the encounter with reality, the moment the actual creature steps out of the trees. The mouse's immediate, verbalized reaction is, oh, help. Oh, no, it's a Gruffalo.
Yeah, that is tricky.
That one line completely shatters the illusion of the grand architect. The mask slips. The mouse is caught completely, genuinely off guard. All its prior confidence was built on the assumption of its own fictional superiority.
I hear you. When the Gruffalo appears and casually remarks that the mouse will taste good on a slice of bread, the mouse is backed into a terrifying corner. It has to pivot instantly. That oh help moment proves the mouse was playing a game it didn't fully understand. It proves the opportunist theory.
I have to admit, when I first really analyzed that oh help oh no moment, I thought my whole master strategist theory was dead in the water.
Oh, so you concede the point?
Not quite, because while I acknowledge the surprise, you have to look at the recovery speed.
The recovery speed? Yes. The gap between the mouse realizing its fiction is actually a biological reality and the mouse declaring, don't call me good, I'm the scariest creature in this wood, is virtually non-existent.
I mean, sure, it's fast.
That kind of instantaneous cognitive reframing proves a highly systematized intellect.
Or just a massive adrenaline spike.
But adrenaline usually dictates fight, flight, or freeze, right? A truly panicked prey animal would flee or it would freeze in terror. The mouse doesn't do either.
No, it talks.
It immediately realizes that while the physical reality has changed, the psychological mechanics of the deep dark wood remain exactly the same. It demands the Gruffalo to just walk behind me.
Right, the walk.
That isn't just a pivot. That is the rapid deployment of a deeply ingrained strategic framework. The mouse understands instinctively how power operates, and it immediately sets about reversing the dynamic.
But let's look at how that power actually operates in practice during that walk. Because the mouse survives that final stroll through the woods by exploiting a massive cognitive failure on the Gruffalo's part.
What do you mean?
Think about what actually happens. They encounter the snake. The snake takes one look at the Gruffalo and says, "Crumbs," and slides away to his log pile house. The owl says, "Oh dear," and flies to his treetop. The fox says, "No help," and runs underground. And what does the Gruffalo do?
He says, astounding and amazing.
Right, because the Gruffalo is observing this mass exodus and concluding that these predators are terrified of the mouse. The mouse is entirely relying on the Gruffalo confusing correlation with causation.
Well,
The Gruffalo firmly believes the animals are fleeing the mouse, when in reality, they are obviously fleeing the giant monster walking right behind the mouse. It's a brilliant bluff, absolutely, but it's still just a bluff relying heavily on the luck of the Gruffalo's intellectual density.
so you think it's just luck?
Pretty much. The mouse didn't plan for the Gruffalo to be quite so gullible. It just got lucky that a creature with terrible tusks doesn't have a lot going on upstairs.
That's an interesting framing, but I just can't agree that it's just luck. I call it architectural staging.
Architectural staging.
Exactly. The genius isn't just that the Gruffalo gets confused. The genius is the specific command the mouse gives to initiate the walk. Just walk behind me. By placing itself in the vanguard and forcing the apex predator into the rear, the mouse survives not by fighting the monster, but by becoming the monster's tour guide.
Ha, the tour guide. I actually like that.
It's exactly what it is. It forces the Gruffalo into a passive observational role. The mouse isn't just crossing its fingers and hoping the Gruffalo has a cognitive blind spot. It is actively constructing the physical paradigm that causes the Gruffalo to misinterpret the data.
I see what you're saying, but
It controls the sight lines. It dictates the pace of the reveal. It walks into the clearing first. When the mouse says, "You see, I told you so," it isn't just celebrating a lucky coincidence. It is confirming a hypothesis it engineered through spatial manipulation. It controls the reality because it controls the perspective.
Look, I'll grant you that the spatial arrangement insisting on walking in front is the only reason the illusion works. But we can't ignore why those predators are reacting the way they are in that moment.
Right, there's psychological conditioning.
Yes, they aren't just fleeing the physical presence of the Gruffalo. They are fleeing the horrifying realization that the mouse's terrifying fiction was actually reality all along.
Exactly. Their psychological conditioning suddenly physically manifests.
Yes, but my contention remains that the mouse didn't orchestrate that specific convergence. The mouse is riding a wave of cascading coincidences. The mouse is surfing the chaos.
Surfing the chaos.
It threw a bunch of variables into the air and they happened to land in a way that kept it alive. And I think that brings us to the final linguistic strike, the climax of the entire encounter.
Oh, the most brilliant moment in the text.
Let's hear your take.
So the mouse has marched the Gruffalo past the fox, the owl, and the snake. The Gruffalo is thoroughly convinced of the mouse's dominance. And then the mouse explicitly mirrors its earlier tactics. It says, "But now my tummy is beginning to rumble. My favorite food is Gruffalo crumble."
The final bluff.
But it's way more than a bluff. It is the hallmark of a master strategist, bringing an overarching plan full circle. Think about the symmetry.
Okay.
It uses the exact same linguistic weapon, the culinary-themed threat, that it used to dispatch the woodland predators, and now deploys it to dispatch the ultimate predator. The mouse takes the Gruffalo's initial physical threat of eating the mouse on a slice of bread and raises the stakes to Gruffalo crumble. It uses the monster's own name against it, causing the beast to turn and flee, quick as the wind. It is a flawless, beautiful execution of premeditated psychological warfare.
I hear the symmetry you're pointing out. I really do, but I'm sorry, I just don't buy that it's a calculated checkmate.
Why not?
Let me tell you why. Gruffalo crumble is the ultimate opportunistic Hail Mary pass. Think about the geography of the wood at that exact moment.
Okay.
The mouse has run out of predators to parade past the Gruffalo. The fox is gone, the owl is gone, the snake is gone. The trick is over. The illusion is at its absolute limit.
Ah.
If they walk even 10 feet further, the Gruffalo is going to look around, realize the wood is completely empty, and realize the mouse is just a mouse.
So you think the mouse was entirely out of ammunition?
Completely out. The mouse drops the crumble line out of sheer desperate necessity to end the encounter immediately before the bluff expires.
I don't know about that.
And the most compelling evidence for this isn't even the line itself. It's how the narrative resolves immediately after.
The nut?
Yes. Once the Gruffalo flees in terror, what does the mouse do? Does it revel in its dominance? Does it construct a throne out of twigs to rule the deep, dark wood? No. The text says, all was quiet in the deep, dark wood. The mouse found a nut, and the nut was good.
A perfect ending, honestly.
But look at what it implies. It emphasizes that the mouse is a highly pragmatic creature driven by immediate biological needs. It's hungry. It just wanted a snack.
Well, sure.
It is not a dark intellectual manipulator pulling the strings of the forest ecosystem. It's just a brilliant, highly motivated improviser who managed to survive long enough to finally eat lunch.
That is a really wonderful reading of the ending, but I actually think the simplicity of the nut was good highlights the very essence of the mouse's strategic superiority.
Wait, how so? It's literally just a nut.
Because the mouse doesn't need external validation. True power, true intellectual dominance doesn't require a constant loud display of force once the threat is neutralized.
Okay, that's a stretch.
No, think about it. The mouse set out with a primary objective, a peaceful stroll in the woods to find food. The predators interrupted that objective. The mouse deployed a complex, escalating psychological defense mechanism to systematically remove those obstacles.
Right.
And once the final obstacle, the Gruffalo, was removed, the mouse simply deactivated the defense system and returned to its primary objective. The understatement of the ending isn't evidence of simple-mindedness. It is the ultimate flex of a mind entirely at peace with its own formidable capabilities.
Wow, the ultimate flex. But doesn't the fact that the mouse was literally making up the Gruffalo undermine the entire idea of premeditative capability? We established the mouse says, silly old fox, there's no such thing as a Gruffalo.
Right.
If it possessed a master plan to control the woods, why would it rely on an imaginary monster? It's only through the absurd, almost metaphysical coincidence of the Gruffalo actually existing in physical space that the mouse's survival even becomes a question of intellect versus brawn.
So you're saying the strategy relies on an accident?
Exactly. The mouse essentially stumbled blindly into a reality that matched its fiction, and then just had the mental agility to pretend it was all going according to plan. The true intellect is in the recovery, not the setup.
See, I come at it from a different way. I actually don't think the coincidence of the Gruffalo appearing diminishes the strategy at all. I think it elevates it.
Elevates it? It was an accident.
But look at what the mouse did with the accident. The mouse created a theoretical construct perfectly designed to target the anxieties of the woodland predators.
Okay.
When the physical manifestation of that construct appeared, the mouse didn't discard the theory, it weaponized the theory against the construct itself. The mouse realized in a fraction of a second that even the ultimate physical predator is susceptible to psychological manipulation.
Sure.
The Gruffalo is physically dominant but intellectually hollow. By commanding the Gruffalo to walk behind it, the mouse effectively turns the Gruffalo into its own personal bodyguard.
That is true.
It uses the Gruffalo's terrifying physical presence to validate the very lie the mouse used to scare the other predators in the first place. It is a brilliant, infinitely recursive loop of psychological dominance. The Gruffalo is witnessing a magic trick where the mouse is the magician and the Gruffalo has no idea he's actually the prop.
A magic trick? Sure, but one performed in the crucible of a near-death experience. We have to keep our focus grounded in the text itself. The Gruffalo explicitly says, "You'll taste good on a slice of bread."
An immediate threat.
Yes, that is not a theoretical debate. That is an immediate, existential threat of consumption. The mouse's response is an act of sheer linguistic adrenaline.
I see that.
I admire the mouse immensely. I really do think the story is a profound exploration of how a physically diminutive entity can outmaneuver massive physical dominance. But assigning a cold, calculated Machiavellian premeditation to a hungry creature walking through the woods strips the mouse of its most remarkable quality, which is its resilience.
Resilience.
Yes, its ability to take a shattered assumption, there's no such thing as a Gruffalo, and instantly forge it into a shield. That adaptability, that Street Fighter instinct to just survive the next 10 seconds, is far more valuable and frankly far more impressive to me than rigid planning.
I hear that, and honestly, as we look to synthesize our positions, I think we actually find a massive point of agreement here.
Really?
Yeah. Regardless of whether one views the mouse as a grand architect of psychological warfare, as I do, or as the pinnacle of improvisational intellectual agility, as you argue, the core thesis of the material remains entirely intact.
Which is?
We both agree on the fundamental truth drawn from this narrative. Physically inferior entities can entirely neutralize massive physical dominance if they can manipulate the cognitive frameworks and assumptions of their opponents. The deep dark wood essentially serves as the ultimate testing ground for intellect over brawn.
Oh, absolutely. The text serves as a brilliant case study in how fear is constructed, tailored, and subsequently weaponized.
Exactly.
The predators in the wood, the fox, the owl, the snake, and even the towering Gruffalo itself, are defeated not by physical force, but by their own cognitive blind spots and their susceptibility to narrative.
They are undone by stories.
Right. It suggests that reality is highly malleable to whoever controls the narrative framework, proving that understanding how your opponent processes information is the most powerful weapon you can possibly possess.
Which brings us right back to our starting point. If you drop a vulnerable entity into a jungle of apex predators, survival isn't just about having sharp claws or terrible teeth, it's about the architecture of the mind.
Beautifully said.
Is the mouse a master planner who engineered a psychological trap from the very first step on the path, or a brilliant improviser surfing the chaotic wave of its own shattered assumptions? The material gives us a profound look at both possibilities, leaving us to wonder how much of our own reality is just a story we tell ourselves and others to survive.
That's the real question.
And we will leave that ultimate conclusion up to you, the listener, to decide.